Hello everyone. Today I'm making my first ever versus battle video. I've only ever talked to some friends about scaling and watched a ton of versus battles / scaling videos from people like Seth the Programmer, Clyde, Chuck, Six, Jay the Great, and a few others. It's something I genuinely enjoy watching to hear people's opinions on a character, so I thought I'd throw my hat into the ring, so to speak, and probably get my ass beat round 1. As you probably saw in the title, we'll be talking about the Yellow Flash Minato versus Achilles the Fleet-Footed from the Fate series. Both characters praised for their speed and being one of the best in their respective franchises. We'll be going over each character's speed, physical strength, attack potency, durability, weapons and abilities, then finish off with how I think the fight would go. And just to clarify, we'll be going over Edo Minato in this video due to the fact that it would be kind of unfair to Minato if it was a live base, as you'll see throughout the video and at the end. I know no matter what I say, I'm going to get hate, but hey, there ain't no dislike count without a browser extension, so the only thing stopping me is someone in the comments calling me a dumb bitch or something, so without further ado, let's get started. First, we'll go over Minato's speed. Minato, as a Jonin, was able to combat the Raikage, a character who is stated in the databooks to move like light when using his lariat. Then again, this was a younger version of both characters, so they obviously got stronger and faster over the years following the Third Shinobi War, implying that the Raikage was only like light as he got older. It can be argued that they were sub-relativistic to light at this point, going off of pixel scaling and such, but at the very least being above lightning. The Raikage later in the series says, "Now that Minato is dead, I'm the fastest shinobi." There's also a scan saying his lightning cloak is compared to Minato. The Raikage is still implied and showed to be faster than B, who can match the Raikage using a lower version of his Bijou cloak for the lariat, which is the move where the like light statement comes from. So the version cloak theory makes sense, implying that the Raikage, not at full speed, is relativistic to light, but this can be argued to be false. B even says that he's at max power now, I didn't see this coming, when Naruto dodges him, which is another way you can say A is faster than just being like light. This is further supported by Minato in the Fourth War, who's able to react to characters like Naruto, who outspeeds A using only KCM1, not with teleportation, but pure speed. So if you give Minato a bare minimum KCM1 speed increase, he'd be much faster than Naruto, who outspeeds the Raikage by possibly over 72 times, though Swag Kage in this video here puts into perspective on why this could be wrong, and I will put this video in the description so you guys can see it for yourself. So we know for certain that a faster character with a faster speed increase as Minato likely uses KCM2. I can't exactly put a number to this feat I feel comfortable with, but just know that Minato would be insanely fast on top of his reaction speed and use of teleportation. Tobirama even says Minato has better teleportation than him, which some translations saying Shunshin or body flicker, which is a high-speed movement technique that makes it seem like you're teleporting. He also says he's quick at striking too. Tobirama being the guy who invented the Flying Raijin and used to be the fastest shinobi in his time, as said by Madara. He arrived to the battlefield faster than all the Hokage and placed markers to teleport the Ten Tails Bijou Bomb within this time frame, as well as the markers for the barrier that was formed by the Hokage. Minato was also able to react to 8th Gate Guy, who warped space with his speed, teleport in to block Madara's truth-seeking balls, then teleport out before his cloak is damaged without the use of the Nine Tails. Madara, without being the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, is able to fight all the Kage, including A, being amped by Inoki all at once. this implying an outright showing that Madara is many times faster than the Raikage as an Edo. And even after all these 10-tail level increases, Minato can still somewhat keep up and react and be relevant in these battles without KCM. And I see a lot of an argument that Minato is slower than Tobirama because he performs incredibly poorly for a portion of the war, but Minato was stated to be in a daze and wasn't fighting effectively. So even if you don't think that Minato's raw physical speed is light speed, he clearly has light speed reaction times, if not faster than light reaction times, this being multiple times faster than light with KCM. And it's not like there isn't other forms of light speed scaling. Some databooks saying Itachi can shoot a water jutsu at light speed, Haku with his ice mirrors while not holding back his light speed, and plenty of others that could be its own video topic. Now we'll move over to Achilles. Fate scaling in general is pretty hard to do. Achilles is regarded as the fastest of all servants with A+ rank agility. Agility covering physical speed and reaction, fight speed, so it's difficult to measure movement speed as well. Ranking in Fate going from D to A, and EX being above and not really being able to be measured, such as Gilgamesh, the King of Heroes, having EX rank NP. And as you may have gathered, this is literally Achilles, so his biggest weakness is his heel, which when struck reduces his speed by 70% and removes his nigh invincible defense. Even with his speed reduced, he can still casually move at ultrasonic speed, which is a fancy word for supersonic, fairly casually, and can even keep up and combat with people like Chiron in the Atlantis Lost Belt after his heel was struck. Chiron being the guy who has an ability called Mind's Eye True A-ranked, which in Apocrypha, he was able to use this in combination with his skill Clairvoyance B+, to snipe one of the horses on Achilles' chariot. Achilles' chariot being said by Iskandar in one of the games that it could move at light speed, though I was not able to find this. And the chariot already being stated to have god speed or godlike speed that surpasses common sense. Clairvoyance B+ works in tandem with Mind's Eye to give Chiron limited future sight. What I'm trying to say is that even after his speed was reduced by 70% in the Atlantis Lost Belt, he was able to battle Chiron, who also has A+ rank agility, on top of ships worth of soldiers being enhanced by these nanomachines, and still being able to put up a fight, giving him insane reactions and giving him the ability to battle people even when in constant pain after his heel is struck. Not even mentioning the fact that Chiron knows almost all of Achilles' moves since he literally trained him, and also he has limited future sight to go along with that. Chiron said himself he could barely read Achilles' movements, but was still able to snipe Achilles' beyond light speed / godspeed chariot in Apocrypha. Also in Apocrypha, after his heel was struck, he was able to battle and defeat Atalanta, who was also A+ ranked in agility and said to be the fastest sprinter in all of Greece. In the Grand Order Carnival Phantasm, she said she was confident in beating Achilles in a speed race, but this could also just be banter and not a legitimate statement. It was also stated that Excalibur's attack speed can move at light speed in the novels when using it against Castor, while a servant known as Iskandar dodged it before, which he admits to being inferior to Achilles on top of having a much lower agility rank. He's actually a fan of Achilles. This could be attributed to instinct and not a true feat or have everything to do with his chariot Gordius wheel. But the feat in question does have some pixel scaling, which has been calced before. I'll throw it up on screen for you all to see. Then, there is another statement in the novels about Arturia and Lancer fighting at near light speeds. Apologies for the crusty ass image. So, Achilles, who is the fastest servant, should be faster than Lancer and Arturia, In short, Achilles is easily faster than light in terms of combat, going off of Iskandar, Excalibur, and Lancer. Also possibly still relativistic after his heel is struck, at least in reaction speed, with relativistic speeds being arguable for movement speed. So who has the edge in speed? Minato can be calced faster than light in terms of movement, with even higher reaction speeds being multiple times faster than that in base. Achilles has similar feats of speed going off of other characters that should be slower than him, going off the statement that he is the fastest servant. Especially if Iskandar, who has D rank agility, can react to insane speeds similar to how Naruto dodged a light speed character in a very similar scenario. With that in mind, I believe both characters with or without Wank, based on your interpretations of the statements above, should be relative in speed, with Minato having the edge if he can figure out Achilles' weakness and strike his heel. But Achilles should be faster than base Minato, since Minato only has feats comparable to Achilles' highball feats with KCM. Now, Naruto characters aren't especially known for their raw physical lifting strength, and shinobi mostly rely on hacks, tactics, jutsu, and speed in most cases. Minato is a perfect sage like Naruto, so he should scale to some of the physical feats Naruto has performed in Sage Mode. I'd like to point this out now, but this is in Sage Mode, not base form. I'm saying this with emphasis because there will probably be someone in the comments screaming that Minato is not this physically strong in base. And while most people bring up that Minato supposedly sucks at Sage Mode, he literally closes his eyes and within a couple seconds he's a perfect sage. This is gonna be a bit headcanon, but personally I believe he says this to be humble as he's just that kind of person. Minato is also a character based almost entirely around speed, so I personally believe he'd rather take that time to say, lay down some teleportation markers, rush his opponent, form a plan, etc. And it's true he doesn't really hold it for long, so I'll give him that. Then again, he could probably use shadow clones to distract opponents so he can enter it, but if an opponent is pressuring Minato to the point he needs Sage Mode, then it's going to be hard for a character who's always moving to take the time to stop for a few whole seconds to gather the required nature energy. Again, those are my personal thoughts. Now that that's out of the way, let's go on to see how physically strong Minato should be in Sage Mode. I say this again with emphasis. If we say that Sage Minato would be relative to Sage Naruto in the fight against Pain in terms of physical strength, which would be a bit of a lowball considering that Minato didn't even see Pain as that much of a threat compared to the masked man who attacked the village 16 years ago, aka Obito. So with that in mind, we go to Naruto's feat of lifting the giant rhinoceros that was summoned by the animal path during the Pain invasion. There's a few different ways that this can be calculated. One being you can get the average size of the rhino using pixel scaling and apply the cube's scaling law to get an accurate weight going off of how much a rhino weighs normally. Because you can't just times the weight of a creature by how much bigger it is than the average, because the animal would crumble from the weight of the rest of its organs and such, not being able to compensate for a simple weight and size increase. I'll put the calcs on screen, but this calculation can give roughly 3,790 tons. And another way is to just do a general guess and say the rhino is roughly the size or weight of a blue whale, which is around 140 to 200 tons, which greatly reduces the feat in question by almost 20 times, using the same formula as before. But this way is a little off considering it's a massive rhino and not a whale, but can make more sense since it's just referring to a creature that's around the same size, if not larger. Some saying it's 4 times the size of a whale, but I'm a little skeptical on that one. This overall would give Minato several hundred tons of lifting strength to upwards of 3,790 tons in Sage Mode, and much higher if using the Kurama avatar that can even wrestle Bijou. For Achilles' strength, there's a lot less words to say since we don't really have to pixel scale too much or compare him to another character for right now. There is a moment in which Achilles stops, catches, and partially holds back a Boeing 747, which is around 200 or so tons, or 183,500 kilograms. It's a little hard to calculate the speed that it's falling since it's falling mostly on an angle and isn't exactly a free fall. Because if we say it was a free fall and it fell for about 7 seconds before Achilles slammed into it, he'd be hitting it with 44,000 tons of force because you have to match the energy of the falling object to cancel it out and halt it, which he did momentarily. He also proceeds to keep pushing against it until Chiron blows it up. But either way, he is still able to partially push back a 200-ton jet while pushing against gravity while in the air, which puts it relatively on par with the second way of scaling Minato's Sage Mode. So, who is physically stronger? Achilles would likely be much more physically strong than Minato, base to base, which I don't think many people would disagree with. Sage Mode would even the playing field in terms of lifting strength, but can be argued to still be in Achilles' favor, but the high end of Minato's scaling being above in terms of lifting strength. Then there's the Kurama avatar, which would probably put him above Achilles in terms of physical lifting strength. And yes, I do understand that striking strength, or any form of attack potency / damage capacity, is different from physical lifting strength. Now we're moving on to attack potency, destructive capacity, etc. And to clarify, destructive capacity, or DC, is the amount of damage a character can actually produce, while attack potency, or AP, is another term for destructive capacity that an attack is equivalent to. Basically, you can have the AP to damage a planetary being even though you don't have the DC to destroy a planet. Make sense? Hopefully. Now, since we've done Minato first twice, we're gonna do Achilles first this time. Now, to scale Achilles' attack potency, we need to scale him to another character known as Karna. Karna being the son of the sun god in the Indian epic Mahabharata, or however the heck you pronounce that. Now, why is this guy so important right now? It's because that he's one of the people Achilles is said to be relevant to in Apocrypha by Jean and Shiro, even going so far as to say he would be the only one who could stop him if it came to it. So how strong is Karna? Karna is the descendant of a literal sun god and can use flames that have the radiance of the sun itself. His strongest offensive noble phantasm is the Vasavi Shakti, which is a phantasm that sacrifices all of his defense, which we'll cover momentarily, to form an all-out attack said to kill even gods. He uses this to attack Astolfo using one of Achilles' noble phantasms, the Achilles Cosmos, the miniature world enclosed by the azure sky, which is a defensive type phantasm that deploys a miniature world that can block almost any attack and was forged by Hephaestus, the god of the forge. It is weak to anti-world phantasms but can withstand anti-unit, anti-army, anti-fortress, anti-country, or even anti-divine noble phantasms. There's a lot of wordplay involved with that one, so it could be considered a planetary level feat since Karna was able to shatter the shield with the anti-divine phantasm, Karna also being compared to Gilgamesh, who is the king of heroes and arguably the strongest hero. And I'm not going to outright say that it's a planetary level feat because I know I'm going to get my ass eaten by someone in the comments about it, so at absolute bare minimum, this would have to be anywhere between an island level feat to a planet level feat, if you're considering the fact that a whole ocean outlines the shield and the world statement. That's if you take that literally. It does recreate the world in his image, so it could just be Greece, which would be an island, but then again, it's a wording thing. Karna also has a separate phantasm when boosted by his mana burst skill and is compared to nuclear weapons. The fact that Achilles is comparable by any means should give him the attack potency to damage people that are island, to continental, to planetary. He can also use his shield to attack by ramming someone with the shield active and having the person face his world. This is further supported by the fact that Karna has a set of armor as a noble phantasm called the Kavasha and Kundala, which is a powerful defensive type phantasm, said to emit the radiance of the sun itself, giving even gods trouble in penetrating it. Though the armor is not invincible, it reduces all attacks to 1/10 of their strength. He even withstood an attack from god Aranjana in the Lost Belts called Mahapralaya for 5 seconds, Mahapralaya being an anti-world phantasm that is said to destroy the world in his profile in Fate Grand Order, and god Aranjana also destroys the Lost Belt multiple times in order to recreate it every time, Lost Belts being failed timelines of the world itself. So having continental to planetary levels of attack potency, or continental to multi-continental, is consistent for Achilles if he's said to be the only one to match Karna in that war. Now we go back to Minato. Unless Minato is using KCM, he doesn't have a similar AP to Achilles' highball feats. We can give him mountain level AP easily as a lowball in base, considering Jiraiya's massive Rasengan was stated to be able to carve mountains, and I don't think there's many people that think Jiraiya is stronger than Minato, Minato being the stronger of the two. Minato can be scaled to Tobi, which he saw as a greater threat than the full Ninetales, who he left Hiruzen and the village to deal with, possibly giving him continental AP in base, going off that half of Kurama can turn the world to ash. So using the Kurama avatar should give him multi-continental, possibly planetary, but planetary is a little harder to argue, even for both characters. So who has the better attack potency? With Minato using KCM, he can be argued to be relative to Achilles' highball feats at max power with his shield, but in order to not highball one character and lowball the other, we can meet in the middle ground and say they have comparable AP, with more arguments to be made that Achilles could be higher. This is only if Minato uses KCM, so base to base, Achilles is higher in AP, while Minato can possibly match him with KCM. That being, if you believe that both characters can be scaled to multi-continental to planetary. But, to meet in the middle, we're gonna say multi-continental. Now for durability, I don't think I have to go into too much detail, considering Achilles is literally invincible and can't be damaged unless it's a god, a person with divinity, or a divine construct, which is a weapon made by a god. Examples being Arendite, the Bull of Heaven, Ea, Mjolnir, Vasavi Shakti, and a few more. And unless Minato can figure out Achilles' weakness, he won't be able to damage him since Minato doesn't have any form of divinity. But if the heal is struck, he should be able to put the hurt on him and have a speed advantage over him. At least in raw physical speed, with reactions being a little more debatable again, going off the Iskandar dodging Excalibur scaling yet again, especially since there is a statement that Achilles' reactions are equated to instantaneous movement. There is the chance of Minato being able to use the Reaper Death Seal considering it's the Shinigami or God of Death, but then again this would kill Minato in return, resulting in a tie. Sure, he could use a clone and have them use the Reaper Death Seal to kind of negate his invincibility, but the clones are weaker than himself, and there is still a sort of tug of war when using the Reaper Death Seal, as seen with Orochimaru versus Hiruzen. Plus, Achilles can always summon his chariot to slam into Minato and free himself. But even after his heal is struck, Achilles can still fight and combat people again, like Atalanta and Chiron, so while he's not invincible anymore, he still has high level of durability compared to other servants. We don't really have too much to go off of for Minato in the durability department because we rarely see him actually get hit. And while he was an Edo, he could take kicks from people like Jubi Madara, but any damage that would have been done could be regenerated considering it wasn't done with Madara's staff or truth-seeking balls, which ignore most forms of defense and attack the soul. But I'm not saying that his durability is complete garbage either. The regeneration coming from the Edo Tensei, and added regen if he has Kurama. I would still put him in the leagues of people roughly on his level or even weaker that can dish out and take island level attacks with ease, giving Minato Island to continental levels of durability, especially since a small portion of the Ninetales chakra can save people from an attack from the Ten-Tails, Minato obviously having this level of durability with KCM. I think that either way, Achilles has the better durability, with Minato being able to possibly have more if he strikes Achilles' heel. Now, before we get to the fight, let's quickly go over both characters' weapons and abilities. Minato has a variety of moves that can make him difficult to fight when facing one person, but also in a fight with multiple people, as evident by his performance in the Third Shinobi War, where he was given a run-on-sight order as he was too effective in combat to be challenged by even platoons of shinobi. His most well-known ability is his Flying Thunder God, or Flying Raijin. The Flying Raijin is a seal that Minato can place on any surface and give him the ability to teleport to said seal. This jutsu is labeled as a space-time ninjutsu and literally rips a hole through space-time to teleport. He can also create barriers with the Flying Raijin to teleport away Bijou bombs from the full Ninetales, who at half power can turn the world to ash and blow away mountains with no effort whatsoever. Although teleporting multiple large objects such as the Ninetales, who is an absurdly massive creature, on top of teleporting away large-scale attacks like Bijou bombs, can drain his chakra pretty quickly, though having the Ninetales basically removes that. He has Sage Mode, which greatly increases his physical strength and specifically reaction speeds to be higher than that of KCM. And while Naruto combined them, he is a lot more versed in using it than Minato, so it is a stretch to say that Minato could combine Sage Mode with KCM like Naruto did. While we don't know every jutsu Minato has, we know that he has access to the Shadow Clone Jutsu, which creates a doppelganger of the user that can use all of the same abilities that the user has, but it is just weaker by a certain degree, and can be literally one-shot. There is also a handy ability that whenever a Shadow Clone is defeated, or pops, the user gains the knowledge the clone had, and while Minato does have mastery over it, he can't spam it like Naruto, who even without the Ninetales has a large supply of chakra due to him having Uzumaki blood. This is negated by Minato having Kurama to supply him chakra, but even when he had Kurama in the war, he didn't spam clones, though he should be able to, possibly because it isn't his style of fighting. That's why he may not have done it. He has the Rasengan, which he modeled after Tail Beast Bombs. It's basically condensed swirling chakra that causes massive damage on impact, and is considered the highest form of shape transformation. Minato also doesn't need any hand signs to perform the jutsu and can increase the size of his Rasengans like Jiraiya, who can carve mountains with it. With Kurama, he can actually use Bijou bombs with the Kurama avatar, which are extremely powerful condensed balls of chakra, which detonate, causing a massive explosion. Minato also has access to the Reaper Death Seal, which we went over a little bit before. It allows Minato to summon the Shinigami and seal a target at the cost of one's life or soul. The biggest disadvantage to this ability is the fact that it kills the user and can be resisted if the target is similar in strength and can basically play tug of war for their soul, like with Orochimaru. And while Hiruzen used this as well with Shadow Clones, he used it on an inferior reanimated first and second Hokage. So it stands to reason that if he tries to do this to Achilles while only using a Shadow Clone, he may be able to resist it, and even if so, he can use his chariot as a means of escape. He also does have access to a wide variety of sealing jutsu, such as the one he used to cut Obito's connection with the Ninetales, but we don't really know more than that. We just know he has Uzumaki level knowledge of sealing jutsu, and it's a big stretch to say he could seal Achilles' phantasms considering their manifestations of his legend. Now, Achilles has multiple phantasms on top of a few skills which we'll go over first. He has Magic Resistance C. This cancels chance below 2 verses, which won't really help him here, and he cannot defend against Magecraft on the level of High Thaumaturgy and Greater Rituals. Riding A+, a skill that gives him the ability to ride creatures on the level of Phantasmal Beasts and Divine Creatures to be used as mounts, on top of learning how to ride any vehicle he comes into contact with, though it can't be used with dragons, and it's not really going to help him in this battle either. Battle Continuation A, a personal skill that allows him to fight even with grievous wounds. In the Atlantic Lost Belt, he was able to continue fighting even after his heel was pierced and his heart was pierced by one of Chiron's arrows. So he can even fight after his invincibility is taken away and his heart is pierced for a short time. Chiron saying that he was dead but still fighting. Valor A+, a skill that allows him to nullify mental interference such as coercion, confusion, and glamours, and also grants him increased power in hand-to-hand combat. And finally for skills, Affection of the Goddess B, which all it does is increases parameters by 1 rank. For Noble Phantasms he has Troias Trigodia, his chariot being pulled by his horses Xanthos, Palios, and Pegasus. This chariot gains more power in proportion to the speed it is moving and tramples his enemies, acting as a giant lawnmower, if you will. Each horse being comparable to high-tier servants in durability. Dromius Cometus, or however the heck you pronounce that, a phantasm active whenever he is on the ground and is a representation of his speed. He can run through a whole battlefield in one breath, and obstacles on the field will not slow him down, barreling 1-ton golems in the process with ease, with some statements saying it equates to instantaneous movement. Andreas Amarantos, or however you pronounce that one again, Achilles' whole body and the representation of his invincibility, something we've already gone over. Achilles Cosmos, his trump card, and the shield we spoke of before, a divine construct forged by Hephaestus containing a miniature world that can block nearly any attack. And finally, we have his lance, Diratrekon Aster Lonke. Again, I don't know how to pronounce that. He can use this to create an arena, so to speak, that cuts his opponents off from the environment and time itself. It negates any form of luck or divine intervention and forces opponents to battle Achilles 1v1 in an enclosed space. The biggest downside is that he can only use this phantasm against male opponents he wishes to fight and who have enough courage and skill to respond to his challenge. So he can't use it on anyone much weaker than him, or a woman due to a curse placed on him by Penthesilea, the queen of the Amazons, after he killed her. Now it's time to figure out how I think the battle could go. We've already established that these two characters are relative to each other in most categories when Minato is using KCM, with durability being the only thing that Achilles has over Minato, considering once again that he is invincible unless his heel is pierced or his opponent has divinity. Basically, the fight comes down to if Minato can pierce his heel. So could he figure out his weakness? It's possible, but not too likely. Minato is incredibly smart and considered a prodigy that only appears once every generation. His combat intelligence is high enough to the point he could even figure out how Obito's Kamui worked after only seeing it twice when no one else in the series could figure out a counter to it. Sure, no one else could teleport and Kakashi had Obito's other eye, so it was the only other counter. So it could be possible for him to figure it out if Achilles reacts differently for whenever Minato is near his heel or something. Plus, he would have Kurama, who is also very smart considering he's been alive for so long. But you may ask, Minato can just place a flying Raijin seal on Achilles and it's game over, right? Well, not exactly. Achilles is said to have reaction speeds so fast that it equates to instantaneous movement. Sure, Minato can instantly teleport to Achilles, but Achilles would be able to react and possibly hit him before he can teleport again. Although if Minato rushes Achilles with multiple clones that constantly teleport to him, then it could spell trouble. By that point, it becomes a battle of attrition if it continues like that, Minato having Kurama to keep him fighting for hours on end, and Achilles should have pretty damn decent stamina himself considering the man fought in the Trojan War for years, possibly without any of his servant level boosts. And being able to fight for hours over multiple periods while in constant pain from when he was weakened against Chiron in the Atlantic Lost Belt. On top of getting pierced through the heart at one point and still fighting against multiple loads of humans, enhanced to the level of a servant using nanomachines. If Minato uses the Kurama avatar, it would probably become a game of cat and mouse considering Achilles can fly on his chariot. It would be pretty damn awesome to see a Kurama avatar chasing down Achilles' chariot while firing off Bijou bombs, though. With both characters having comparable AP if the avatar is being used, Achilles would more than likely continuously fly around, gaining speed before trying to ram the avatar enough times for Minato to stop using it, as he is a much bigger target that way. Even if Minato manages to kill one of the horses on Achilles' chariot, he has a trump card which could work. This would be his lance. As we went over before, when Achilles activates the lance to form an arena, it has his opponent fight in a 1v1, negating any form of luck or intervention. It also cuts you off from the environment and time. So would this be able to stop Minato from using Kurama? It's quite possible, considering Kurama is a separate entity within Minato, and the spear prevents anyone from interfering in the battle, which includes gods. So unless Kurama is above the concept of divine intervention, he may be removed from the battle or just not be able to assist Minato directly. This also begs the question, could Minato teleport out of the arena that is formed? The answer to that is a little tricky, because the flying Raijin rips a hole through space-time to teleport the user, while Achilles' spear cuts you off from time itself. Sure, Minato is implied to be able to teleport across dimensions if you think he could teleport out of Kamui, but when you remove the aspect of time to his space-time jutsu, it may not work. So it's entirely possible that Minato wouldn't be able to teleport, or at least outside of the arena. If Minato loses the help of Kurama, this fight becomes incredibly difficult for him. If he uses Sage Mode, then he gains limited precognition, which would even things out again, especially if you go off the statement that Naruto says when fighting the third Raikage. This is probably referring to KCM1 and not KCM2 though, but precognition and extended attacks with the Frog Kamata would be very helpful. Although you're cut off from the environment as well, so even Sage Mode may not work as Minato needs to gather energy from nature. Though I am willing to admit this would be a bit of a stretch, at least in terms of Minato not being able to use Sage Mode. If Minato loses access to both of these things, it will become incredibly difficult for him to pull off the win unless he would have figured out Achilles' weakness by this point and pierce his heel, or pierce it in the battle within the arena, which would be incredibly difficult, yet again. Without rambling even longer than I already have been for over 35 minutes, I think that in more situations than not, Achilles has more ways to win than Minato does. Most of Minato's win conditions would come from him being able to pierce Achilles' heel and remove his immortality/invincibility before he can activate his lance's ability. And with the lance activated, they have to fight to the death before the arena is lifted. Overall, Achilles would probably win 6 to 7 times out of 10 with incredibly high levels of difficulty, especially if his spear is activated and he rams Minato with his shield's phantasm activated to obliterate him and negate Edo Tensei's regeneration. Although Minato does have ways he could win, but again, they come from Minato being able to pierce his heel. One being to pierce his heel then continuously teleport using clones to slit his throat or something, and a second being to pierce his heel and overwhelm him with Kurama before he can activate his lance or his shield. All in all, I believe the winner for this battle more times than not is Achilles. Let me know what you all thought of this long-ass fucking video, but please do keep it relatively friendly in the comments, and have a nice day.